The king just did the unthinkable. In the middle of Britain's most chaotic election season in decades, King Charles has shattered royal tradition with a savage political bombshell, one so pointed, so unexpected, it has left the entire country stunned. And at the centre of this firestorm, Nigel Farage, the face of Reform UK, who is absolutely fuming. What started as a political earthquake has now become a constitutional inferno, and it's happening in real time. The gloves are off. The monarchy and populism have just gone to war. Let's unravel how we got here, because this moment didn't come out of nowhere. In fact, the fuse has been burning for weeks, and now it's finally exploded. For months now, the political atmosphere in Britain has been growing more volatile by the day. The rise of Reform UK has turned the electoral landscape upside down. What many once dismissed as just another protest party has now bulldozed its way into the heart of British politics. Nigel Farage, a man once laughed off by the establishment, is now the man shaping the future of Parliament. Polling surges, viral speeches, and a wave of voter frustration have made him the voice of a movement that refuses to be ignored. But with every action comes a reaction, and this time, that reaction has come from the most unlikely place of all, the monarchy. Just when Reform UK was celebrating one of its most shocking electoral breakthroughs, with seats snatched from both Labour and the Conservatives, King Charles decided to step out of the royal shadows. In a public address that initially sounded like a standard royal appeal for unity, things took a sharp turn. The king began to speak, not just as a ceremonial figurehead, but as a man deeply disturbed by what he called the creeping normalisation of extremist rhetoric in British political discourse. No names were mentioned, of course, after all subtlety is a palace specialty, but the tone, unmistakable. Every word felt like a direct hit on Nigel Farage and the party he leads. Observers across the country sat up. This wasn't the carefully measured language of a monarch staying neutral. This was a statement loaded with political tension, a veiled condemnation that carried all the weight of royal authority. King Charles praised Britain's diversity and warned that the forces of division have gained a troubling foothold. The timing could not have been more precise or more pointed. Reform UK's manifesto had just been released days prior, with hardline policies on immigration and national identity taking centre stage. To many, the King's message was crystal clear. This was a royal rebuke of Reform UK's platform, delivered in full public view. Within hours, social media erupted. Social media, political commentators, constitutional scholars, and ordinary voters alike were caught in a frenzy of speculation. Had the king finally broken the golden rule of British constitutional monarchy, absolute political neutrality? For over 70 years, Queen Elizabeth mastered the art of silence in the face of political storms. But her son, it seems, has chosen a different path. And now, Britain is in completely uncharted waters. The response from Nigel Farage, nothing short of volcanic. Within minutes of the King's remarks being broadcast, Farage took to the airwaves with his trademark fire. On live TV, his face was flushed, his voice sharp with fury. He accused the monarch of abandoning his duty, of stepping into the political arena when the public needed neutrality, not royal commentary. "This is a disgrace," he fumed. "The people voted. The palace should respect that." He didn't stop there. Farage hinted, some say threatened, that the monarchy itself might no longer be immune to reform. "No institution," he declared, "is above the will of the people." The implications of such a clash are enormous. On one side, the constitutional monarch, bound by centuries of tradition to remain above the fray. On the other, a populist leader who thrives on confrontation with elites and institutions. This isn't just a disagreement, it's a showdown between two powerful symbols of British identity. And now that the line has been crossed, there may be no going back. Political analysts are warning that the King's remarks may have backfired spectacularly. In trying to caution against division, Charles may have only deepened it. Reform UK supporters are now rallying even harder behind Farage, who has wasted no time in framing this as proof that the establishment is terrified of him. They fear change, he told a roaring crowd the next day, and they fear you. The populist playbook has never been clearer. When attacked by the elite, double down, and Farage is playing it to perfection. Meanwhile, inside the palace, silence. No clarification, no walkback, nothing to suggest the king regrets his statement. And that silence is deafening. With every hour that passes, the crisis grows more complex. Legal experts are already whispering about a constitutional grey zone. Can the monarch truly intervene like this without consequences? Could Parliament be pressured to act? Could this provoke a wider backlash against the monarchy itself? These aren't just hypotheticals. We are now standing at the brink of a potential constitutional standoff, with public trust hanging in the balance. Reform UK's surge was already destabilising the old political order. Now it's shaking the very foundations of Britain's constitutional monarchy. The story is far from over, but make no mistake, the first battle has been fought, and both sides are digging in. The palace versus the populist, the crown versus the common man. The next moves could define Britain's future. Stay tuned, because what happens next may change everything. As Britain reels from the seismic confrontation between King Charles and Nigel Farage, the aftershocks are starting to ripple through every level of society. Political parties are scrambling to recalibrate their strategies. Media outlets are ablaze with speculation. But perhaps most telling of all is the reaction coming from within the institutions that have, until now, carefully upheld the fragile balance between the monarchy and democratic governance. Suddenly, every move, every word, every silence is being dissected. The King's statement, subtle as it was, has cracked open a long-suppressed national debate. Should the monarchy remain politically neutral in an age of political extremism and populist surges? Or, as some argue, does a monarch now have a moral obligation to speak up when democratic values seem under threat? This debate isn't merely academic, it's raging across Parliament. While Labour has chosen to stay largely silent, hoping to avoid being caught in the crossfire, Conservative backbenchers are reportedly furious behind closed doors. Some view the King's intervention as a dangerous overreach, a violation of the unwritten constitutional contract that separates crown from governance. We cannot allow the monarch to shape the public discourse, however well-intentioned, one senior Tory MP was overheard saying in Westminster. Meanwhile, Liberal Democrats and SNP officials have cautiously praised the King's comments, calling them a timely reminder of the need for national unity. But even their support is carefully worded. No one wants to be seen dragging the monarchy deeper into the political battlefield. Among the general public, opinion is starkly divided. In towns and cities across Britain, the King's words have lit a firestorm of emotions. For many traditionalists, this is a betrayal. They remember the late Queen's unwavering silence in the face of crises, and feel that Charles has jeopardised the monarchy's most sacred virtue, its impartiality. The crown should stand above politics, not dive into it, said one disillusioned voter from Kent. But others, especially younger Britons disillusioned with the political status quo, see Charles's speech as a rare moment of courage. He didn't name names, but we all knew who he meant. A university student in Manchester posted on social media, and someone in power had to say it. What's truly remarkable is the way this controversy has created a kind of feedback loop, intensifying the very divisions it was trying to address. Nigel Farage, ever the political opportunist, has seized on this with laser precision. His speeches have become more defiant, more aggressive. He's positioned himself not just as the underdog battling the elites in Westminster, but now also the lone warrior standing against an overreaching monarchy. If the King wants to join the debate, then let him face the people, he declared, in a fiery rally in Birmingham. The crowd roared in approval, waving placards that read, "Power to the people and no more palace puppets." For Farage, this is political gold. He's no longer just challenging Parliament, he's taking on the very crown itself, and his base is eating it up. But this isn't just a media sideshow. Behind the spectacle, real questions are being raised that could have lasting implications for British democracy. Can the monarchy continue as it has in the past, operating on soft power and public deference, when the very nature of British politics is shifting beneath its feet? Reform UK's rise is not an isolated phenomenon. It is part of a global trend of populist upheaval, where traditional institutions are being rejected by voters who feel abandoned, unheard, and betrayed. In this environment, silence from the Etwe. Monarchy can be seen as complicity, while speech risks being seen as partisanship. It's a trap with no easy exit, and King Charles has walked straight into it. Even the media, which once treated the royal family with near-religious reverence, is now openly debating the King's judgment. Prominent outlets like The Times and The Telegraph are running op-eds with headlines like "Charles must remember he is not an elected leader" and "Has the King overstepped?" Meanwhile, left-leaning platforms like The Guardian and Independent argue that the monarch's concerns are valid in the face of growing far-right rhetoric. Online, it's a war zone. Hashtags like Chanam King Charles speech and Nigel Farage v's crown are trending non-stop. Memes, rage posts, and amateur constitutional takes are flooding every corner of the internet. The nation isn't just watching this unfold, it's participating, reacting in real time, amplifying the tension to unprecedented heights. And this growing volatility has alarmed institutions that prefer to work quietly in the background. The Church of England, long a cautious partner of the monarchy, has reportedly urged restraint behind closed doors. Senior bishops are said to be deeply concerned about the politicisation of the royal office. Meanwhile, civil servants in Whitehall are frantically drafting contingency plans in case the constitutional fallout escalates. According to one insider, Downing Street is preparing for every imaginable scenario, including potential calls for a formal royal apology or a statement of clarification to calm the nation. But the palace has remained tight-lipped, issuing no further comment, as if doubling down on its original position. Meanwhile, Reform UK is gaining momentum. Every headline, every royal whisper, every elite backlash fuels the party's narrative. Donations are pouring in, volunteers are swelling their campaign offices. And Farage, he's already hinted at something even bigger, a possible coalition. If current polling trends hold, Reform UK may end up with the power to make or break the next government, and they're leveraging every ounce of that potential. "They tried to silence us with tradition," Farage thundered in his latest broadcast. "But we're building a new tradition, one where the people are in charge. The consequences of this royal political collision are far from settled." What began as a carefully worded royal message has now mutated into a full-blown national identity crisis. The old Britain, reserved, deferential, rule-bound, is colliding head-on with the new Britain, angry, disillusioned, and demanding change. Whether King Charles intended to enter the battlefield or not, the moment he spoke, he became part of the war. And now, the question is no longer if there will be fallout, but how deep it will go. As tensions escalate and the nation braces for further political tremors, all eyes are now on the monarchy's next move. Will King Charles stand firm in his subtle defiance, or will the mounting pressure force him into retreat? The monarchy has historically survived by treading a delicate line, neither fully detached nor explicitly involved. But this time, the backlash is unlike anything seen in recent memory. Calls for constitutional clarity have erupted, with constitutional lawyers, royal historians, and political commentators arguing feverishly over what exactly the monarch can and cannot say. Some are now advocating for a formal review of royal powers, including a modern-day codification of the monarch's public conduct. Others warn that such a move would further inflame the divisions already threatening to split the country apart. Regardless of which side one falls on, it's clear, the King's remarks have reopened a dangerous and long-dormant debate over the Crown's true role in the modern era. Amid this unfolding chaos, the media continues to serve as both a magnifier and manipulator of public sentiment. Major broadcast networks are running wall-to-wall coverage, amplifying every nuance of Farage's fiery rhetoric and replaying the King's statement with minute scrutiny. Even international media outlets like CNN, Al Jazeera, and Reuters have joined the frenzy, highlighting the United Kingdom's internal political disorder with a mix of fascination and alarm. Analysts are speculating about possible scenarios ranging from constitutional reform to a symbolic abdication if the royal pressure becomes unbearable. Palace sources remain tight-lipped, but insiders suggest that high-level meetings are taking place daily behind the scenes. Advisors are reportedly urging the king to issue a carefully worded follow-up statement that reinforces his commitment to neutrality while expressing general concern over national division. Whether such damage control will be enough remains to be seen. In Parliament, the divisions are deepening. Rebel MPs from both Labour and Conservative parties have started to break rank, forming unofficial alliances with Reform UK, or at least echoing their sentiments. This shift in allegiance is not necessarily ideological, it's survivalist. With Reform UK climbing in the polls, many MPs are feeling the heat from their constituents. In marginal seats, Farage's influence is becoming a kingmaker, or kingbreaker. Constituency offices across the country are being bombarded with emails and phone calls from angry voters demanding accountability, clarity and change. The political establishment, long insulated from such grassroots volatility, is now being forced to reckon with a populace that feels both emboldened and betrayed. Meanwhile, Farage's campaign strategy is evolving with precision. What began as anti-establishment anger has now transformed into a sweeping movement, fueled by royal controversy, economic discontent, and cultural frustration. But perhaps the most alarming development is the growing friction between the monarchy and the electorate. Polls reveal a dramatic shift in public confidence in the royal institution. Support among older Britons remains relatively steady, but younger generations are rapidly losing faith. For many under 40, the monarchy no longer symbolises stability. It represents elitism, outdated tradition, and inherited power in an era that demands transparency and meritocracy. The king's remarks, rather than uniting the nation, have exposed these generational fissures. On university campuses and in online forums, activists are once again raising the call for a republic. Petitions for a public referendum on the monarchy's future are gaining signatures by the hour. Though still a minority view, the Republican sentiment is louder, more organised and more defiant than it has been in decades. The economic backdrop is only exacerbating the crisis. Inflation, housing shortages, and a stagnating job market have left millions struggling, and many blame the political class, and now the monarchy, for ignoring their plight. Farage has capitalised on this perfectly, drawing a direct link between elite indifference and everyday suffering. In speeches that are equal parts populist and provocative, he paints a picture of a rigged system in which both Parliament and Palace are complicit. They dine in palaces while you choose between heating and eating, he declared at a recent rally. The message resonates. Each royal carriage ride, each lavish banquet, each ceremonial robe becomes political ammunition in the war Farage is waging against the establishment. Even within royal circles, there are reportedly disagreements. While the king is said to be adamant about standing by his message, other members of the royal family are urging caution. Prince William, viewed by many as the future face of the monarchy, is believed to favour a return to quiet dignity. Palace. Insiders whisper of tense family meetings, with different generations offering conflicting advice. There is growing concern that continued royal engagement in politically charged issues could tarnish the next generation's standing before it even begins. The Queen Consort is also said to be deeply unsettled by the controversy, urging a softening of tone and a return to ceremonial focus. The royal household, once a bastion of unity, now finds itself facing its own internal divisions, mirror images of the nation it serves. Meanwhile, Farage's ascent shows no signs of slowing. His party's membership numbers are surging. Major donors who once backed the Tories are shifting their funds. Grassroots campaigns are springing up in rural towns and urban centres alike. And behind closed doors, senior figures in both Labour and the Conservative Party are beginning to consider the unthinkable. What if Reform UK gains enough ground to force a hung parliament? Could Farage end up holding the balance of power? Could he demand concessions that reshape immigration policy, national identity laws, or even trigger a constitutional referendum? These aren't idle speculations anymore. They're rapidly becoming strategic calculations. The king's speech, meant perhaps to calm or clarify, has done neither. Instead, it has supercharged a political insurgency that now threatens to redefine the very nature of British governance. The looming general election, once expected to be a routine reshuffling of power, is now morphing into something far more volatile. With each passing day, the stakes grow higher. The country is no longer just choosing a government, it's confronting its identity, its values, and its future. And in the middle of this storm stands a monarch caught between tradition and transformation, and a political rebel determined to burn the old order to the ground. The next few weeks could bring the kind of political realignment Britain hasn't seen in generations. Alliances will fracture, institutions will be tested, and the public, increasingly restless, will not accept half measures. As the political storm intensifies, secret negotiations have quietly begun behind closed doors, marking a critical turning point in this unprecedented constitutional crisis. Far from the public eye, senior officials from Reform UK, key figures within the palace, and high-ranking members of the government are engaging in tense discussions aimed at managing the fallout and exploring potential resolutions. These talks reveal just how precarious the current balance of power has become. Reform UK, emboldened by its recent electoral success and the royal rebuke of the establishment, is pushing aggressively for significant concessions. Their demands are not merely about policy tweaks, they are about fundamentally reshaping the relationship between the monarchy, Parliament, and the electorate. At the heart of these negotiations is an explosive proposal, a national referendum on the powers of the monarchy itself. This proposal has sent shockwaves through the corridors of Westminster and Buckingham Palace alike. For decades, the monarchy's role has remained largely symbolic, yet Reform UK now seeks to challenge this foundation, arguing that a modern Britain must have a monarchy that is fully accountable, or else reconsider its place altogether. Within the palace, this development is being treated with the utmost seriousness. Senior advisers recognise that ignoring or dismissing Reform UK's growing influence could deepen the crisis, risking irreversible damage to the monarchy's standing. Yet there is fierce resistance to any idea that would weaken the Crown's traditional privileges. This tension has exposed fractures among the monarch's closest confidants. Some advocate for a conciliatory approach, emphasising dialogue and reform to protect the institution's future. Others warn that conceding to populist pressures would embolden anti-monarchists and fuel Republican calls. The king himself is reportedly caught in a difficult position, torn between his personal convictions, expressed in his recent intervention, and the constitutional obligation to remain neutral and above politics. The palace's handling of this internal dilemma will prove crucial in determining whether the monarchy can survive the current maelstrom or whether it will be forced into a historic transformation. The economic backdrop is only exacerbating the crisis. Inflation, housing shortages, and a stagnating job market have left millions struggling, and many blame the political class, and now the monarchy, for ignoring their plight. Farage has capitalised on this perfectly, drawing a direct link between elite indifference and everyday suffering. In speeches that are equal parts populist and provocative, he paints a picture of a rigged system in which both Parliament and Palace are complicit. They dine in palaces while you choose between heating and eating, he declared at a recent rally. The message resonates. Each royal carriage ride, each lavish banquet, each ceremonial robe becomes political ammunition in the war Farage is waging against the establishment. Even within royal circles, there are reportedly disagreements. While the king is said to be adamant about standing by his message, other members of the royal family are urging caution. Prince William, viewed by many as the future face of the monarchy, is believed to favour a return to quiet dignity. Palace. Insiders whisper of tense family meetings, with different generations offering conflicting advice. There is growing concern that continued royal engagement in politically charged issues could